Ultra Despair Girls, aka Danganronpa, another episode. I was just spewing out some gibberish because I think that title just makes me chuckle sometimes. Yeah, it was a game that came out last year in Japan, but NISA announced early this year that they were going to localize it, and the game practically came out almost a year after they released Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair, um, for the PlayStation Vita. Now, with me is Windzer321.
I
And he kind of looked ahead of the game before I have. He saw
I
Japanese Let's
I
Plays of it.
basically played the Japanese version.
No, you didn't. You just watched someone play it and
Yes,
claimed it.
okay, I played it because I'm an impatient person.
I'm not. I'm just going to wait for the game to be localized, which obviously was going to. I mean, it is a pretty popular franchise, I think. I don't know. I don't follow the fan base. I just. I just love the games I love to play. Now, the story for this game is about Makoto, the main character's sister in this game, Komaru Naegi. For about a year and 6 months, she was trapped in an apartment. No connections. No. God, what's the word I'm looking for?
No social interaction at all.
No, I was about to say no connection to the outside world.
No,
Uh, no interactions of the outside world. Oh man, I'm a little off today. Um, so she's just been living in this really nice apartment for a year without knowing what the hell's going on, and then all of a sudden something changed. She thought she was gonna finally get a hope of freedom, but then all of a sudden, a fucking weird black and white bear started breaking into her apartment and trying to kill her. Now, I always thought there was going to be an apocalypse soon. But ain't gonna be zombies, ain't gonna be nuclear war, and ain't even gonna be children's card games. You know what it is, Jordan?
bears.
Bears! They're the biggest threat to the world. Especially these bears that are just murdering shit at the beginning of the game. This isn't really huge spoilers here because this is something you'll see in the first half hour. But they show like cutscene, like after you escape the apartment, they show like this anime cinematic where just bears are just killing and slaughtering all over the place. They still have the pink blood, but it's still pretty disturbing to look at. The game does start off a lot darker than the first two games, but shockingly enough, the tone kind of dies down little as the game progresses. Now let's talk about the gameplay first. I want to get that out of the way because it's not really the strongest asset, but it's not really that bad. It's a third-person shooter. Specifically, it's more of a Resident Evil 4 clone. You run around parts of the game, you explore, you pick up items, you pick up upgrades, and you fight with a megaphone that's actually a hacking gun that's used to fight against the Monokumas. And there are various different Monokumas. There's the regular Monokuma, there's Siren Monokuma, which is an alarm system that summons other Monokumas, Bomber Monokumas, that's pretty self explanatory, Beast Monokumas, uh, Monokumas on a cob, just all these kinds of crazy Monokumas.
You
Uh,
forgot the best one, ball
oh
Monokuma.
yeah, Ball Monokuma, which for some reason throws garbage at you and blocks your screen. I don't
That
get the
was
reference.
I'd expect the zombies to do that honestly.
Hmm. Um, but it turns out that the reason why this shit's all happening, while Byakuya from the first game tries to help her escape, but then he gets captured, is because a couple, like five kids, pretty much announced that they want to turn this place into a children's paradise, and they want to slaughter all the adults. Think codename Kids Next Door if they were fucking psychotic and okay with killing people. Um, and then she gets pulled into, and then she gets even more involved as part of a game to these kids. She ends up getting a wristband that that if she removes it explodes, or if she leaves the city grounds it explodes. However, along the way, she encounters Toko Fukawa and her serial killer alter ego, Genocide Jack, and she aids Komaru in her chances of escape and or survival uh, from Toa City, which is the location of the game. A lot of questions that get brought up in the first chapter of the game, but they do eventually get answers. And there will be spoilers, but I'm not trying to spoil too heavy on it because even though Windzer here has seen most of the gameplay through a Japanese Let's Play through broken English translations, he doesn't completely understand all the storyline elements, and he plans to play the game himself
when I'm not poor.
when he's not poor. Um, But the gameplay itself is all right, but obviously they care too much more about the story than the game because there were more cinematics and cutscenes and dialogue than I want to say actual gameplay. The good news is if you only care about the gameplay, which I don't know why would you with this type of game, I would just not recommend it if that was the case. You could skip the cutscenes. But really, if you're a fan of Danganronpa, if you played the first or the second game or both, I do recommend picking up this game as well because the story and the characters are actually really interesting. Komaru keeps telling herself that she's just an average, everyday high school girl, the same way Makoto says that about himself. Replace girl with high school boy, obviously. And however, she actually has more to her character at the beginning of the game than Makoto does. And funny thing is, in Danganronpa fashion, she also happens to have a cowlick sticking out of her head, and so does Toko as well. Toko, she looks all kinds of fucked up. Her clothes are fucking tattered, and her hair's all frilly and messy. She looked like she came back from killing people.
I could also swear she has, like, I don't know, some form of kanji cut into her skin at one point.
Yeah, she does. She actually has kanji. I don't know if it's tattooed or carved into her leg. I could barely get a read at it. I don't know what it says. It could say Byakuya's name. I don't know, but yeah, you did notice that about her too. Um, I did complete the main story of the game, but I did not pick up every single file and artifact in the game according to the game results. And I really need to pick up all that shit because if you do pick up some of the stuff, if you pick up the storybooks and whatever, Kamaru and Toko will actually have conversations with each other afterwards, and you get some character development out of those two. For one thing, it turns out Toko has two mothers and a father. Very interesting story about that. Kamaru apparently explains that she can communicate with ghosts, and she's also a fan of manga even though Toko really hates manga because she's a novelist. Um, but the strength is those two characters. They were actually really, really engaging. I really didn't care much about Toko in the first game. She was just this weird, self-loathing, stuttering prick. I mean, her serial killer side was interesting, but then she became boring again afterwards. Um, and of course, she ended up being one of the survivors in the game. So, I mean, she wasn't a terrible character. I didn't really completely hate her. And some of the things she was saying in regards to her feelings towards Byakuya did make me laugh a few times because it was obviously a bizarre Stockholm syndrome abuse case because Byakuya always saw her as disgusting, and Toko was like, he noticed me. However, in this game, in Ultra Despair Girls, her character has improved greatly, and she even has an arc herself. The friendship between Komaru and Toko actually grow throughout the entirety of this game, and it's almost a bromance. Can we say it's a bromance? I don't care if it's two female
Yeah.
characters. It's a bromance.
No, it's a broad man's.
Okay. But yeah, it's really the story that helps piece this game together. Even though the cinematics are long, and there are four different types of cinematics in this game. There's the simplistic the simple style where it's kind of like Persona 4. They use the CG models in a back in a weird camera angle, have them pose, and then use the artwork of them to talk while the text is on the bottom, at the foreground of the screen. Then you have CG cutscenes, and there was a good amount of them. Then you also have anime cutscenes, which I was actually impressed on how long they were. Usually, most anime cutscenes I've seen in video games don't go as far as a minute and 30 seconds. These felt like they were probably clips from a full episode, and they are from the same studio that worked on the anime adaptation. And if that wasn't enough, they still brought back the creepy storybook art style that was used in the first two games, especially when they were using the executions.
which they used a lot of like weird aspects of them they never really did before. Like embrace the fact that it was actually 2D, basically cardboard cutouts on a 3D plane.
Mm-hmm. The scene that really makes me that I really like the most in that style was at the beginning of the game where Kamara thought she was gonna get out of the helicopter, but it turns out there was a Monokuma in the cockpit, and he freaking like grabs it, just dives the helicopter down, and even though she's able to walk off of that with no scrapes or bruises, and keep in mind the helicopter dived, it didn't just do a generic crash, it just went. um, what else can we talk about? Any other technical aspects like the voice acting or whatnot? I know you're not familiar with the English dub, but I can tell you this much.
I know most of it. From what I saw, all the voices seemed to fit the characters. There was only a couple I didn't hear.
Um, the voice acting in the game, it took a while for some of the characters, but I eventually got used to it. Especially Kotoko, Jetaro, and Monica. Those are three of the five characters of the Warriors of Hope, as they call themselves, the main villains in the game. Um, all the voice actors from the video game return, who make an appearance in this game. Toko still has two different voice actresses, one for Toko and one for Genocide Jack. Don't know why, but whatever. Um, Yeah, the voice acting I was kind of iffy about at first, but again, it's just one of those, you get used to it, you get comfortable with it. Even though Monica was actually annoying when she ever threw one of her tantrums because she would yell like this all the time, pausing between words and or syllables, and I just found that obnoxious. Um, Another weird thing about the dub is that in the cutscenes, whenever they show the Monokumas in the cutscenes, they use the Japanese voice, but they have his voice actor in the video games. They have his voice actor during gameplay. You can tell too because the Japanese Monokuma, you know how he laughs, right?
Yeah.
Oop 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 oop. But like I said, when you get into the gameplay, you still hear him say "emergency, emergency." There is one thing I want to say about the gameplay. The puzzles that you have to solve in the game are probably the strongest points. Um, there are a lot of sections in the game called Monokuma, which is this arcade machine that you have to hack into, and you're given an objective on how to. You're given an objective, and you have to like do it in a precise way they want you to do it. Like, you know, kill all the Monokumas in one explosion using a knockback bullet. Uh, that's an example. And they're not that difficult to do. They're fairly easy to do. I've been playing the game on its normal difficulty setting, so um, and the game does have a grading system after each chapter, and you're graded on how many of those you can complete, how many retries you use, and how many of the Monokuma kids that you find, the graffiti art that you find all over the place. Which, by the way, harder than it looks. Um, I found all the first five of them in the first chapter, but then afterwards I can only find like one or two per chapter.
I think the way it works out is you have to go into some very oddball locations after that, like way off the path sometimes.
Yeah, I figure that's the case. Um, but the thing is, you have to use detect, and you can only tell because they have like this weird glitter constellation. You just use the detect on that, and then all of a sudden you get it. But I couldn't find those. I could find a lot of the way you can find items in the game. It's like I said, it's very similar to Resident Evil. You just find a big glimmer, and then you just run towards it and then pick it up or examine it. Um, so I have to go back and look for all that crap. Um, what else can I talk about technically about this game? That's really all I could say. Like as a third person action shooter, it's serviceable. I mean, if you're not into that but still want to play the game, there is a very easy difficulty setting, which gives you unlimited access to Genocide Jack, and she's practically invincible, and you could just cut up and slice up all the Monokumas.
That sounds like the preferred way to play.
And she actually does have a difficulty setting named after her, genocide mode. And I love how she transforms into Genocide Jack on Will by using her taser. And
Like
sometimes she doesn't transform on Will, which leads to some funny moments. Excuse me a minute.
I I I just have a feeling that that the way she transforms using the taser, she said Byakuya was the one that told her how to do it like that. I have a feeling there was a better way to do it. He just chose that way specifically because
Because he,
it's her.
yeah, because he probably think it will amuse him a little. Um, yeah, nothing else about the gameplay. Let's continue on about the story because that's the most important. Because that seems to be like I said, the most important part of this game. Story's great. The characters great. The villains, I hated at first because they were kids, and especially murdering kids. That's the worst kind. However, they do all have some pretty messed up backstories. Kotoko's is the worst, but I don't want to go into details as to what happened with her. I'm just surprised that NIS America was able to get away with that. Let's just say that much.
Gotta keep. Did you get the achievement for it? Gotta keep that age rating down.
Yeah, yeah, I think I do have that achievement. Uh there's a part of the game where Kamaru gets captured by Kotoko, and let's just say they paid a nod to another game called Criminal Girls. You have the internet, you can research it yourself. Um the boss fights, the mecha battles, that was actually not as hard as I thought it would be. But one person that I dreaded that came back when I first saw him, I was like, oh fuck! It had to be the lowly servant.
We'll never actually call him by his name because that's the joke.
Yeah, but if you played Danganronpa 2, you already know who the fuck this guy is. And when I saw him first time, I was like, oh no. But he again, he weirdly helps out Kamaru for his own bizarre, selfish reasons.
He's like the super versions of those guys from Futurama that don't agree or disagree on anything.
You mean the neutrality guys?
Yes.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other. There were a couple side characters that were actually relatives to the characters from the first game, and that actually does get explained. What the case was in regards to that. When you start chapter 3 of the game, um, and only two of them died. One of them One of them had to get exploded. The other one had to die a really horrible death by the hands of a beast Monokuma. And shockingly enough, I think Well, no, I'm not gonna say too much. Like I said, I want to avoid giving away huge spoilers, but let's just say it kind of sucks that they died because of everything else in the game. Now, this game is about 20 hours long. That's not bad for a $40 game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what else I could say other than there were a lot of twists and turns in the game. Characters that you expect to act or behave turn out to be something much worse than you imagine. Like Haiji Toa, the person who was in the resistance group. I mean, he kind of starts out kind of scummy, but then he turns out to become an even bigger and bigger piece of shit along the way. Uh, the whole Toa family thing is actually a whole mess between them all.
You can always bring up how Toko never decided to bring up any useful or relevant information ever.
Yeah, that was something that pissed me off at like the first half of the game. She never really brings up anything relevant, and that's another thing that pissed me off about Komaru too. Komaru, like occasionally, would always get on her knees and cry because she thinks she can't do anything because she's just an average everyday high school girl, and Toku's like, "Oh no, you could do something about it." And then Toko, even though she knows her brother, even though she's been through shit like this, even though she knows the relative of some of these characters, she never brings up any valuable information. And at the time, I was very fucking frustrated. However, at the beginning of chapter 4, it turns out she had some ulterior motives and things started to make sense.
Hmm.
And it did make Toko kind of sort of look like a piece of shit because I get it, she loves Byakuya that much. But man, fuck you. It's okay. Things got patched up almost immediately afterwards. You had a boss fight with her. But overall, I did love this game a lot. Um, Even though Danganronpa 3 has been announced, yes, it's been announced by the time we record this video. We both saw the teaser trailer. And it's coming for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita. I do want them to make another game like this, but uh, and maybe continue off of this one because they didn't really have a 100. The game kind of didn't sort of really conclude. It didn't. I wouldn't say a cliffhanger either. It's just weird. You have to put up with like an hour long cutscene of some crazy shit afterwards. But I could see it continuing on, and I would like to see it continue on because again, I do like these two characters a lot, and I like to see more adventures with them, especially in a crazy fucked up world like Danganronpa when Junko and Ashima decided to fuck everything up, and continues to do so. What's your favorite colored Kuma?
Hmm. I don't know. I'd have to say I just like how they portrayed Mobster Kuma.
You mean
Mobster was great.
yeah, Kuro Kuma?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kuro Kuma is actually my favorite. He started off annoying at first, but then all of a sudden, immediately, I grew to like this character a lot. Um, he does start off pretty annoying, but then for some reason, when he was starting to talk about other things like massacres and beatboxing, I just bust out laughing. He starts off very annoying, but we can't help but love this guy. He's like Chris Rock, and
That's a good explanation. Yeah.
Shirokuma, for a bear that gets identified as a he does have a very girly sounding voice. Uh, and it's pretty hilarious how that bear likes to turn valves. Yeah, there's like a part of the game where you actually have to defend Shirokuma from a bunch of Monokumas in the way, because he had to turn valves in order to, gap bridges in the sewers. Yes, there's a sewer stage in this game. No, it's not as bad as other sewer stages, but it could be better.
And there's plenty of Easter eggs in this one because it's all. I mean, it does bridge the gap between Danganronpa 1 and 2 really well, but it also makes you wonder where does it go from here?
Well, wherever it goes, I want to keep following down that road.
The road to despair?
Oh yeah, because you and I, we're never gonna leave that road, ever.
Nope.
Nope. So yeah, like final thoughts. The gameplay was pretty average, but the story was really great, especially for Danganronpa fans. If you're a fan of Toko Fukawa, then you're probably going to really love this. Hell, you probably already bought this game. Um, there are some unlockables to get in this game after you complete the playthrough once. I still need to pick up everything else, but I did complete the main story, and you don't need to do anything else in order to get a special true ending because apparently the developers knew that some people may not be too big in the third person shooter route for their game since it is a genre shift from your Phoenix Wright visual novels to Resident Evil 4. So obviously they had to obviously they had to make the game more simplistic. It's really not that difficult, even on a normal setting. I want to play on despair mode to see what it's like. How much you want to bet it's one hit kills with those Monokumas?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, you're squishy in reality, so
Yeah,
it'll be the most realistic game type.
yeah, and those Monokumas were actually pretty slow when you try to fight them. I mean, they were easy to dodge, and the character doesn't even have a roll dodge or anything. But yeah, I don't usually give out full rating scores or whatever, but I would recommend this for Danganronpa fans. I wouldn't recommend this for people who are new to the franchise or as a gateway. I suggest playing the first or second one before jumping into this game.
Here's the real question: if you played the first game, is it better to play the second one than this, or this than the second one?
Yeah, that's the thing though. If you play this, then the second one, um, you won't get any huge spoilers for the second one, apart from one of the characters from another episode is a main character in Danganronpa 2. Um, and you're probably going to be asking why is what's he doing here, but that's the thing. His character is not that different in between two games. But the thing is, with Danganronpa 2, when uh, when when the servant, or let's say his real name, when Nagato was introduced, you thought at the beginning of Danganronpa 2 that he was just a very swell dude. But then in the middle of the first trial, he goes bug nuts insane. Kind of like how he is throughout the entirety of Ultra Despair Girls. So I don't know. It would be. Some people might wonder why are you such a cool dude? You're an asshole, like you always are.
Really thinking about how the game progresses, I think it is better to play Danganronpa 2 than this game because the spoiler bits around the end of the game might ruin the spoilers for Danganronpa 2.
That's the only spoiler I could think of really in regards to Danganronpa 2.
Uh,
Nothing else in related to that game shows up.
are you sure?
If you're talking about that ending scene, if you
Yes. Yes, I
that
am.
doesn't give away shit either.
I know, but it could possibly. To some people who can see through things really well, it might.
Yeah, but here's another thing. That character was actually pretty important in a prequel manga called Danganronpa Zero, and apparently, when people saw that twist in Danganronpa 2, they thought it came out of left field and thought, oh, well, you needed to read Danganronpa Zero to understand what the hell was going on. Even though I argue otherwise because I didn't read Danganronpa Zero and I still got the basic gist of everything. Not to mention the way the game is structured, it does immerse you with the twist. You basically react the same way as most of the other characters. Um, no, I don't think that's gonna. I don't think it'll ruin Danganronpa 2 for you if you just played this game and then that one afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. Have you played the games yourselves? Comment below, video response, whatever. This is Darkscreen217 signing out.
Windzer, check you later.